is if a wife isn't completely compliant.
He's no longer acting as my husband.
You really don't care to be in a relationship. I am very angry.
Man, just the knife in the kidneys.
I am cynical.
Abandoned police.
After a while, she's going, well, do you even love me?
I think he is just so hurt still and
I take offense to that word.
just processing a lot slower.
Which is really hard for me to do. Your marriage can't survive usually. At least mine haven't.
Kody's behavior on this season of Sister Wives has honestly been insane to watch, and it seems like everything has been falling apart for him, and the way he's reacted to it all so far makes me think that he might have finally lost it. So guys, we all know that Kody loves being in control, and his recent comments about restoring the patriarchy within the family honestly spoke volumes, but ever since Christine packed up his things and told him that she was leaving, he's been slowly unraveling, and I feel like we've officially reached his breaking point because Christine leaving obviously made him feel like he lost control over her, which he did, and though maybe that actually happened way before then because this also kind of kickstarted some of the other stuff with his remaining wives, and I feel like he's slowly, been losing control over them too, and he's not exactly been, taking it well, and it's honestly just been bizarre to watch. So throughout this season, it's really felt so far like Kody thinks that he's never done anything wrong in his life, and everything is either Christine's fault or Janelle's fault, but never his, and he seems to think that he's the victim in this whole situation, but it's just not working because no one is actually buying that. Not the viewers, not me, not you, and not his other family members. I mean, everyone knows that he's not in the right here, and I think that's what has really been driving him crazy. I mean, a perfect example of Kody's childish behavior that always comes out whenever he feels like he's not in charge was when he said some really bizarre things about Christine, and he basically seemed angry at her for making her own decisions, which sounds absolutely insane, but that's what it seemed like, and he basically kicked off, when she told him that she was moving to Utah, and he tried to stop her from doing that at first, but when she said that she was going to do it anyway, that's when he completely lost it. And he said, you guys, that it seemed to him like the women were taking control over their lives, which apparently made him feel like he's lost control over his own life. And I cannot believe he actually said that. I mean, that is so wrong on so many levels, and he's basically saying that he can't deal with his wives making their own decisions. But the worst part of this whole thing was when he said that he didn't give Christine permission to move out, as if she needed his permission to take control over her own life. I feel like he sometimes doesn't realize that Christine is an adult woman, she's not a child, and she can decide for herself just fine. And if anything, I'm happy that she at least seems confident enough not to let this, get to her, because if it was up to Kody, I feel like he would have prevented her from moving out or ever even leaving, and he keeps saying how in a perfect world he would still want to reconcile with her, and we obviously know that this isn't going to happen since the show's a little behind, and I'm honestly extremely relieved that that's the case because I feel like Kody only really wants to reconcile with her so that he can just have control over her again, and he's not even, genuinely interested in her for a while now. At least that's what it felt like, to Christine, and to me, it just seems like he's only interested in her because she's leaving, but if she were to stay, I feel like things would go back to how they were really quickly. And that whole scene where they, were discussing things in the recent episode was honestly just super insane to watch. And in his confessional, Kody even called Christine hostile and backstabbing, and he also kept insisting that the whole thing felt too rushed, but I again thought that this was most likely just him trying to get at least some sense of control back, but luckily, Christine shut that down pretty fast, and she said that it might have felt rushed to him, but if it was only up to her, she would have moved out much sooner, and I just feel like at this point he's doing anything in his power to keep at least some kind of control over this whole thing, and I wasn't surprised at all when Christine said that he still had some of his stuff in the garage because, of course, he refused to move it, and it's his way of staying in Christine's life, and he probably feels like it would be giving up if he just, did what she asked him to do and move his stuff out for good. And since he's seemingly always been desperate for control, that's just not going to happen. And I feel like even though it seems as if everything was changing because of Christine's decision to leave, it's actually been headed this way for a while now. And maybe Kody was once the head of the household, but that was years ago, way before they ever even moved to Flagstaff. And I think that maybe this has been happening ever since they all stopped living under one roof, and that decision kind of forced most of the wives to become more independent, and they built their own homes separate from each other. And then things really fell apart during the pandemic, which was at least partially Kody's fault, because he made up all those ridiculous rules that they were just way over the top. And then he got upset that not everyone was willing to follow them. And I remember how annoyed he was when Janelle and Christine basically chose their kids over him, which, it felt pretty petty, but what did he expect? And these are their kids. Of course, they're going to come first, but Kody's never been the best at understanding that the world doesn't, exactly revolve around him. And there's a reason why so many people have been saying for years now that they think he might be a narcissist. And the thing about all his different COVID rules was just the last straw, in my opinion. And plus, I feel like some of the wives definitely thought that this was just another way of Kody prioritizing his life with Robin over them. And Christine especially has seemingly always felt that way. And I can't say that I blame her, because honestly, I feel the same way. And I think that we all can agree that Kody's been all about Robin ever since the two first got together. And it's only gotten worse over the years, and the pandemic was really just the final step in him, basically only living with Robin because he was trying to control everyone and force them to follow all his rules. And he found it really annoying that they wouldn't do that, but I'll honestly never understand why he thought they would, since it basically meant that they, couldn't do anything or see anyone, and then he refused to visit any of them, even though at one point Janelle had COVID and probably really needed him, but instead of taking care of her, he refused to see her for months while he stayed with Robin in her house. And he said that this was because Robin was the only one who would follow his bizarre rules, but I don't think anyone was buying that, especially after it was revealed that they let their nanny in their house, which really made Kody look like a massive hypocrite. And it's honestly been bizarre watching Kody's behavior this season. He's grasping at straws at this point, and it shows. And the funniest thing is that it even feels like he might be losing control over Robin, of all people, because there were a couple of scenes this season where even she went kind of against him, which I don't think anyone was expecting. And Janelle's also been doing her own thing, and it sometimes also feels like Mary isn't even part of the family anymore, and Kody's just, not been dealing with any of this well at all, and he's mostly just talked about his hurt feelings, and we've seen him do a lot of sulking, and I can't wait to see how this whole thing goes from here. He's already seemingly lost it, but I also thought that a couple of episodes ago, and somehow he just keeps getting worse. But what do you guys think? And do you think Kody's finally officially lost it? And what do you think might happen next for the family? Guys, let me know in the comments down below.